Yeah, Ryan, I'm curious with the freshmen coming in. You got I think three or four early enrollees in the secondary. Which ones are starting out with you? Have you guys made that decision? How do you kind of sort through all that?
Yeah, well, through the recruiting process and through evaluation, we'll kind of decided who's going to start where. The great thing about the class is they've got a lot of position flexibility. Um, guys like DJ Harvey and Elijah Howard will start with me coming in the summertime. Nike Johnson's already with me, came in mid-year, but right now, as soon as they get in, you kind of develop them, see where they end up. And, guys like Caleb Farley came in at receiver, ended up being a big-time corner. So you never know where a guy's going to end up eventually. So you just kind of get them in your room, see how they develop and grow. But we like the guys that we have and think the potential is through the roof, especially the guys that are starting out at corner for me.
Behind that tier, is Nadir Thompson with you? Naqui Hawkins, some of those guys, we don't hear a lot about. I'm not sure where they're at right now. And is some of that up for discussion as you kind of go forward here? Justin Hamilton said you guys are going to kind of evaluate everything. Who's with you right now, kind of behind that tier of guys that have experience?
Yes, sir. Nadir Thompson is with me. Nike has been with the safeties. And Nadir is working really hard this offseason. He's busting his tail. Looked really good this morning in workouts. And you guys remember he came in that Duke game and performed well. He played a little bit against Pitt. So I'm excited about him and his growth and development. And he's continuing to come along, continuing to focus on the process. And, I'm looking forward to see the opportunities and what he makes of them this upcoming spring.
Thanks.
Andy?
Yeah, Ryan, this is our first time talking to you. Kind of looking at your history here. Played for Jimmy Laycock. Were GA under James Franklin. Those are two pretty good coaches. I'm curious, what did you take away from your time with them, and how they mold you at all as a coach?
And I would also add my first GA stop after I went from Laycock was with Larry Coker at UTSA, who was a national championship winning coach, and I think the world of him. But, the thing about Coach Laycock is he's always focused on the process and doing things the right way. And I think you'll hear that from everyone that has come through the program that's now coaching. I've heard McDermott talk about it. I've heard Tomlin talk about it, of Laycock's emphasis of doing things the right way, never being above the program, always selling the program, always doing things with the program in mind, and just being diligent and hardworking at your job. And, I think Coach Laycock that's why you've seen so many guys get into coaching from William & Mary, and the tree from William & Mary has grown. And not just players, but guys that have been assistant coaches that have left that program at William & Mary. Just the structure of it, the principles behind it, and the core values that he instilled in this program was something that has always stuck out to me and has kind of fueled me as a coach going forward and made me want to coach.
How about James Franklin? Anything from your time up there? That he certainly is a guy that seems to be able to sell his program well. Do you learn anything on the recruiting trail? Just kind of watching how he operates.
Yeah, I got a lot from Coach Franklin being a graduate assistant, and a lot of his assistant coaches that have been kind of my mentors coming up through the ranks. And a lot of them have gone on to be head coaches, like Charles Huff down at Marshall. Joe Moorhead got the Mississippi State head job from there. But it's kind of being with those guys and watching kind of behind the scenes. When you're a GA, you're in the back of the room listening and taking in and seeing who's doing things the right way and what's successful and kind of molding your recruiting techniques. So it was beneficial for me, just kind of as a foundation and a building block to kind of build how I want to be as a recruiter, and detail how I want to be as a coach. And I've been fortunate enough that Coach Fuente has, given me the platform and allowed me to coach within the framework of the program, but, giving me the freedom to grow as a coach under him, and giving me the opportunity to try things out. And if it fails, it's a learning lesson, and continue, and try other tactics and techniques. And it's I've been blessed to be around some good coaches.
Thank you.
Norm?
Ryan, you had, to say the least, an interesting transition in the last 6 or 7 weeks leading up to your first FBS assistant coaching job, to go from thinking you were going to have the most talented cornerback duo in the conference in mid-July to having, arguably the best player in the team opt out. And then Jermaine getting banged up early on. And, oh, by the way, you get to call plays in the very first game that you're as an assistant at the FBS level after Justin catches the virus there. What was that 6 or 7 week sprint like for you leading up to the season, with all that transition going on, plus all of the sort of major events going on at your position, and also trying to get ready to call plays the week of the game?
That's a great question. Kind of thinking back on it, there was a lot of opportunities for, as everything was going up and down and ebbing and flowing, for us emotionally as coaches to ride that same wave if we allowed it to. And I really believe, Coach Fuente did a great job of motivating us as a staff and trickling it down to the team of staying right here, that whatever comes our way, and it's a new challenge every single day, that you've got to stay locked in and focused on the new challenges. You don't know what they're going to be. It might be you might show up and you only have 2 people in your position room. You might show up, you got everybody, but then you get tapped on the shoulder and it's time for you to roll. We had, COVID hit a lot of people this season, and the opt-outs and everything, that the challenges that happened. But one thing I learned is the resiliency part of it, and showing up every single day, just focusing on that process and not really thinking 2 days out, 3 days out, 4 days out, because things can change just like that. But just locking in on what do I got to do right now? What do I got to do this morning? What do I got to do once the afternoon gets here? Okay, what do I got to do that afternoon? And so, kind of to answer your question, as I was told I was going to call plays, it wasn't like we weren't even thinking about, Coach Fuente called me down in the hotel at Hotel Roanoke, and we weren't even thinking about the 8 o'clock game. We were thinking about the 9 a.m. defensive meeting.
Right.
And then from there, we were thinking about the next meeting, then the walkthrough, then getting to the stadium. It was just one little thing, process by process, and that's how we attacked everything this year. And it allowed, in that moment, well, yes, I'm calling plays for Virginia Tech defense, but not only had I been prepared through camp, Coach Fuente allowing me to be the backup signal caller, but also our guys were prepared. I mean, they didn't miss a beat. I really think that anybody could have called. Like, I could have gave that call sheet to anybody, and they could have read the plays, and those guys would have went out there and executed. I was just the fortunate enough guy to be the one calling the plays, because those guys, the players, were hungry, and they were, especially with all the season getting pushed back, the uncertainty, and it was like, oh, I get to play football. And once that ball kicked off, you saw some hungry dudes flying to the ball. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it does. It does. There was a lot to answer in that question.
Yeah.
With the things going on. So,
yeah.
As you sort of move forward at that point without Caleb, was it just kind of did you know it was coming? Did you see it was coming? Had he talked with you about it at some point before he made the announcement in late July? And what was your thought process moving forward into the actual start of practices in August?
Yeah, well, we supported Caleb through it all. We supported him. I supported that decision that he made. Especially with all the uncertainty up in the air. He had some, everything that he's dealt with leading up to that point. And I think Coach Fuente, Coach Hamilton, we supported him from a program's perspective and him as a man and a person. And he's earned that right to make that decision. And as that happened, it was all right. Next man up. We support our brother, but now it's the next man up. We got to go and execute. And then, that was the mentality all season from my room. And, as I tallied the snap counts at the end of the season, Armani Chapman, Breon Murray, and Dorian Strong all played a significant amount of plays, over 400 plays apiece. And, I look at it as, yes, the 2020 season wasn't what we thought it was going to be in the beginning of what corners were actually out there. But all it did was prepare us for the 2021 season. And those guys have experience under their belt. It's a veteran group. I feel great about the corner room. I think the world of the guys that are busting their tail every day to compete, there's a lot of competition in my room. And I think from the top to the bottom, we're pushing each other, and guys have experienced reps behind them. They know what game time experience feels like. They know what it feels like at the corner position. It's not like any other position. You make one mistake and it's 6. It's a touchdown. So you got guys that have learned the hard way and have been able to bounce back and be resilient. And if you can't bounce back and be resilient, you can't play the corner position. And that's what I tell my guys all the time. So, we've got guys that may not have been who everyone thought they would, or they weren't out there. Like Caleb and Jermaine weren't out there most of the snaps, but those guys getting better, getting that experience and learning the game is going to do nothing but help us going forward in 2021.
In the passing game coordinator role that you had added to your job title here, what does that entail for you moving forward, and how did that discussion kind of come about that you take that sort of newly created role?
Yes, well, my job, my day-to-day game planning, it's not going to change much. I'm a guy that Jay Hams, the DC, I support everything that we're doing on the defense side of the ball, everything that we're doing from a team perspective, top down from Coach Fuente, and it was, I'm going to be focused on the pass game like I have been, and it's really just being an aid to Jay Ham, continuing to be that voice for him on game day and during the week in the game planning parts of things, and in practice and things of that nature. But the job itself, is still a supportive role for me, and I look at it as, my job is to help this defense create the best passing defense, best defense overall, and in my role, helping us with the pass game. I don't know if that answers your question totally, but
yeah, sure. I mean, it sounds like it's evolving too. You go along a little bit, but with Jermaine, last thing for me, Jermaine obviously went from a guy that was one of the leaders in the nation and passes defended in 2019 to just not being able to get quite right physically last year. How do you kind of get him remotivated, or is he kind of a self-motivator, or how do you kind of get him back to the level he was at in 19?
Well, there's nothing that I have to do personally to motivate Jermaine Waller. He is self-motivated. He might be the definition of self-motivated. And he's going to show up every single day. He's going to approach the game like a professional. He's going to do his job, get the job done, and go over and beyond what he's got to do. He's developing as a leader. So it's my job to continue to support him and give him those platforms. But I'm not. I think you're going to see a guy that's hungry and ready to attack the 2021 season.
Is he finally healthy?
I don't know if I can answer injury or health related stuff, but he's been awesome. He's been crushing it. I should say that.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Mike Nislik?
You didn't get to have a spring camp last year, obviously, and this year, what'd you do with your plans for last year? Do you throw them out, or did you kind of rethink things? How are you approaching spring? From your perspective for your guys.
Are you saying like spring versus spring 2021 versus spring 2020, or how we adjusted from the season to spring 2021?
From what you were originally going to plan last year to now, did you rethink anything? It was going to be your first spring and then it gets canceled, and now you kind of jump in here. Did you change what you were thinking at all, or your approach is going to be?
Well, I think you'll always change, in my opinion, just as you evolve. And we were able to implement a defense in 2020 without a spring ball. We had to fast track some things. But one thing that I've been excited to do, and one thing that we've been able to do now that we have a spring and we have guys that understand our defense, is it's going from football 101 to football 301, football 401. Guys understand how they fit in the defense. And now it's, how do other people fit in the defense? How our offense is trying to attack us? What does this actually mean when an offense does this? And when you miss spring ball and you miss a lot of time like we did last year, it's, you're trying to get guys to do their own specific job, and you're focusing on that before you're able to go deeper into things. And you gotta crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And so I think now with the baseline of what we've been able to install and implement in 2020, we're now able to take those steps where guys understand the basics and are ready to get into deeper level teaching. And obviously not everybody's ready for that, but the guys that have the experience reps, like I talked about previously, the guys that's played over 400 plays and has been in the fire, they're able to now, okay, coach, I've been looking at this, and this, I understand this now, and that's what I'm most excited about as we continue to grow this defense.
Thanks.
Andy?
Yeah, Ryan, I know recruiting has been such a big focus for the staff, certainly with you and the other defensive hires that were made, some of the coordinator titles that have been handed out recently. How do you feel like that process has been going over the last year and a half, and how challenging has it been to have to do this all over Zoom and maybe not how you had drawn it up early last February?
Oh, yeah. Definitely challenging when it comes to now the whole recruiting game has changed and shifted to it's all virtual now. So it's harder, it's harder to really evaluate the whole person without meeting them in person, meeting them physically, But the one thing that we've been able to do, and, Coach Fuente puts a major emphasis on being able to adapt and get to, through Zoom and FaceTime, just like we're doing right here, is you're able to connect with people in ways that we haven't done before and we didn't use before in this profession. Recruiting-wise, we've been locked in to the state of Virginia, as a program. And I know since day one when I got here, I knew that it was a major emphasis from Coach Fuente on down. And I'm excited that, I loved Coach Tapp. I thought Coach Tapp is a star. He is the man, but I am even more excited to work with JC. JC's knowledge of the state of Virginia, his relationships up and down 95, east on 64 to the 757, in Richmond. He's a rock star, man, and he's got a lot of relationships with a lot of coaches. And me and him being able to tag team down there, especially with the emphasis that we're putting on the state of Virginia. We want to keep Virginia boys home. And we're also evaluating guys that are a good fit for Virginia Tech, you know. And so that's kind of been our mindset and our philosophy. And we're trying to build this thing with good players that have high character.